I'm here in Austin at the Conscious Capitalism CEO Summit with Walter Robb, the co-CEO of Whole Foods, and my friend who's very involved in the conscious capitalism movement. And he's graciously agreed to share his thoughts on what's happening in the retail business with conscious capitalism and at Whole Foods. So thanks, Walter, for
Thank
being
you,
here.
Tara. Appreciate it. Good to see you.
You too. So let's start by, if you would remind me and our constituents and stakeholders what Whole Foods' purpose is and how that's affected how y'all go about your business.
The great thing about purpose is that it evolves over time. As you grow as a person, as you grow as a company, you can keep coming back to that question of why you're here, what are you here to do? And so for Whole Foods now, I'd say it's as much, yes, we continue that idea of bringing healthier food to the world. That's important work to do. We also talk about how we want to do that work. So it's the qualities in which how the company operates and behaves in the marketplace, as well as what it's doing. And also, again, this idea of fun has come through with the fact, remember that we're grocers, we sell food, people gather on the table, and so all those things together kind of say now our purpose is healthier foods with courage and integrity and quality and have fun at the same time.
Great, thank you. And what do you think the benefits are of being a company that's purpose-driven?
Yeah, great question. And I think because purpose is the ultimate why question. Both for an individual and for a company, it gets to the heart of why you're even here. What do you want to do? What are you trying to do? And so because it goes so deep, it gives the individuals and it gives companies the chance to reach their deepest possible potential. I think the biggest differences are really that, first of all, I'd say that our purpose, mission, values are markedly different than those other companies. Not saying anything negative about any of them. Competitors are always worthy competitors. But I think
And stakeholders.
the unique sense of purpose and mission, the history and trajectory of Whole Foods around this idea of providing leadership in the marketplace, around this idea that Whole Foods are better for you and for individuals and communities, I think that is uniquely ours. And we have translated those into quality standards, which are the highest in the supermarket industry. And I would say, with all modesty, it's not even close. And we've coupled those standards all up on the website with a level of transparency and accountability for the products that we bring for the company that we are, that I think does set us apart from the others. So some people do parts of it, but I think that across the board, the standards we've set and continue to set are unparalleled in the supermarket industry. And I think the examples around the transparency we try to strive for, whether it's compensation, pay practices, the foods that we sell, are the actions we're taking as a company to conduct ourselves, as we said earlier, in some way, a transparent manner that sort of sets that example in the world as well. So I think those are some of the key differences.
And your leadership role all around those.
I think so. Well, we're at an incredible inflection and tipping point around retail for retailers, and that is because we are witnessing at least three major trends. One is the expansion of beyond the four walls to the digital world and all the spaces between. Some people call it the phygital. But any successful retailer has got to have a roadmap in a way that gives customers all sets of choices, digital, physical, and the place between. Digital stuff's never going to replace the coming into a store like you build and we try to create, because people like that sense of community and gathering. It's wonderful. And they don't actually want to replace that. What they want is they want to add to that with these other choices. So you have this new envisioning of retail. And I think for the physical spaces that you build and that we operate, our challenge is going to be how do we continue to evolve those spaces to build on the strengths of the community gathering and the place gathering, but also to provide options that let people access it from outside the store, or even to come and, say, pick up deliveries or that sort of thing. So that's one. Number two is the idea of technology, which has just permanently shifted how you think about retail. It used to be that the IT folks were over here doing whatever they did, and just, hey, it's pretty much as long as they do what they do. And then it's moved, and now it's just completely integrated into the delivery of retail. And it will only be more so, where particularly the millennial generation is saying, hey, I want to experience I want to access a recipe before I come in. I want to have my shopping list up online. I want to have be able to research things before I come, or I want to come in the store and then have it take me through the store and find out where to pick up these ingredients, or I want more information. So technology. The third one I would say is this idea of personalization or customization. The successful retail of the future will, in fact, find ways to actually know their customers intimately on a volunteer opt-in basis, but then be able to personalize, customize the offer to them in a way that makes that person feel seen, heard, validated in relationship with the retailer in a successful way. So I think those are three big ideas for where retail is going. And any retailer, in my opinion, that does not move on those sorts of things is going to find themselves, they may still be there and they may still grow a little bit, but they're going to miss the opportunity to really have a robust future. Well, some of that funk, I think, is attributable to the fact the economic waters have been a little bit unsteady. You're seeing posts that that this recovery after the 2008 has been very slow in terms of the growth of average income and that sort of thing. So you've got those challenges on a macro level. You've got the fact that there's clearly a disparity in income growth. So you have the top percent doing fairly well. The income growth is not so much there. So you've definitely got a split customer base in the United States now, where this second group is still being fairly cautious about there. So if you're trying to broaden markets, you're dealing with someone that's heavily value conscious over here, and so you've got that dynamic working in a way that I haven't really seen for a while. Maybe perhaps when the first correction hit, but where the value thing was really preeminent. So you have that going, and then I think you have all these changes we just spoke about that are really putting the test. You can't just do a physical store. You're living in a different world now with the technology and the digital worlds, and so if you're not working aggressively to move there, it's going to put a damper on your growth. So I think all those things. Is there a funk? It's like we talked this morning. This is a sort of dissonance in the system, right? Mm-hmm. It's a thing where you got to see what's happening here, in my opinion, and then keep moving, evolve. Otherwise, you will get a little bit left behind because the customer's already moving that direction and wants to be served in those different ways. That's right. Well, I think you want to cultivate that ability to evolve in your organization, in your company, in your culture. You want to set it up in such a way where that's constantly encouraged, because just one example, it used to be that in a supermarket business you would refresh a store every 5 years because the ideas would last that long. Well, nowadays in prepared foods parts of our stores, we're refreshing them every 3 months. I mean, the ideas are happening that quickly. That's just one representation of how quickly change and evolution is happening in business today. I'm going to have to tell you that. That it's been fun to work with you and on this idea of, to give Terry credit, he come to the Conscious Capitalism Conference and he listened to all this talk and all that sort of thing. And he said, okay, I got to think about how that might apply to our business, which is the development, particularly shopping centers and supermarkets. And so you went back and you've come up with this whole idea for creating the first ever, I think, shopping center that's kind of based on these broader stakeholder inclusive principles, and we're excited to be a part of it. And the design is beautiful. You've built in public spaces. You've built in the nonprofit groups. You've got obviously the government excited about it, right? Or they wouldn't have gotten approved. You've got beautiful environmental respect that's built into the project, and I think you've just done a great job. This will be something to be you're kind of providing a real leadership role in the development community, I think, for people to think about these projects. And
we hope so.
What's that?
We hope so.
It's not open yet, right? So
no,
proof's in the pudding.
We close Friday.
But this whole idea, I just want to highlight what you had shared with me recently, which is that in your own history as a company and growth, that you started out thinking about these things in a very transactional basis, right? I give you this, I get that. Mm-hmm. Whereas now you've kind of evolved your thinking to think that you want your development to have a much bigger purpose and serve a much broader group of stakeholders. And in the end, you believe that will create the return that you want for your shareholders, right? And that's kind of what's happening with Conscious Place. This is the furthest you've stretched yourself, is it not?
Oh, sure. And with the investments we're making in time, energy, with your encouragement, intense community engagement, and financial investment are, I think, extraordinary. And we're hoping that we change the model. We change expectations of those folks, like you mentioned in Colorado, and economic development folks and municipalities around the country, that they grow to expect more. Like we expect more out of Whole Foods. I hope municipalities expect more and communities out of what developers deliver to them in the future.
Well, it sounds like if you feel like if you're expecting more of yourself, then and you're demonstrating that through your actions, and I think it's a fair thing to ask that of others. So
That's right.
I think it's a wonderful thing for the, because in some ways we're developers, we're developing a company, right? And
Yeah.
so that we're all in this path of developing in some ways, and so it's just, how are you going to do that in a way that continues to evolve and to be more conscious and more inclusive? And I think that's what you've done there. And actually, when I finished playing your clip at the talk, and you said one of your things was expect more, and so I picked up that and I said, that did you hear what Terry said? He said expect more, and they're all sort of trying to figure out, well, how do I go to a company and ask them to do more? How do I go to a community and think about it differently? How do I go to the authorities? So it spurred a kind of a whole interesting conversation about that.
Well,
about that
together
area.
we
So
hope to show them.
That's
and
right.
hope people make pilgrimages to see what we're doing. And anyway, we'll get back to you. Thanks, Walter, for that.
But one of the greatest learnings for us out of the downturn was capital allocation, and so it wasn't that we want to put the right size store in the right community and allocate the right amount of capital. So we see our return on invested capital move up, and I'm happy to say we've moved from sort of 7 to sort of 15, which is kind of where I think is a good place for a growing company to be.
Wow.
And it's just been through a much more judicious decision-making process around the right size in the right community and how much do you want to spend against that opportunity. So look, we're on the road to 1,200 stores in the U.S. We've identified them. We haven't said publicly where they all are, but we're at 400, crossing the bend at 400. We intend to move towards 1,200 for the next period of time. We haven't said by what period of time, but I've never seen a bigger opportunity for Whole Foods than I see right now. And that's not just in the U.S. I mean, that's around the globe. We could go to 5 countries tomorrow if we wanted to, but
Is it 1,200 in the U.S.?
1,200 in the
Okay,
U.S.
got it.
We're already in the U.K. and Canada, but there's so much opportunity because the world is realizing the role that healthy
need.
food plays in your life and the vitality of life. And so we'll probably we'll do 38 stores this year. We'll do 41 stores next year, which represents, again, a 10% square footage growth. We operate a little over 15 million square feet. We've got already 5 million square feet of signed leases of growth in the bank. So we're pushing ourselves at sort of a rate that we think 10% square footage growth, which is our size, is no small potatoes. But at a rate that we think is culturally sustainable. In other words, without blowing up the culture, blowing up the thing just to grow for growth's sakes, because we've learned that that's not a good way to go either. Yeah. Well, I think obviously there's this group that you're talking about, there's a wide range in my experience, from those that are still very transactional to those that are really relational. Personally, I'm a relationship guy. I like to get to know the developer. I like to know what they're thinking about. And that's not really my role in the company anymore. But I do think that somewhere on that, there's an opportunity for everybody to move that next step. And I've found that through our experiences in Detroit and Chicago, that a deeper level of engagement, it may take a little more time, between the company, between the developer, between the community, produces great results, produces a better project, and is incredibly fulfilling. I suspect when you look back on your career, you will look at Conscious Place as being one of those moments for you where you experienced true fulfillment in your work. And I think that's possible. And some of these projects where we've gone into areas, and the developers have been totally engaged. They love the community, and you can tell that it's just so rewarding to be part of that and work with them. And I've just got to know some wonderful people. But you talk about adding community. To me, I would argue that what you want to do is start with community. So
I was saying in the past. That's what they do.
No, yeah. But I mean, every business is in a community.
That's right.
But they often take it for granted.
They
that
don't
they're in a
listen to
community. Yeah, and so I think you start there of what does this community want?
Well, one of the most flattering moments of my business career was when I sat down with you in your office for the first time to talk about Conscious Place, and I showed you our purpose statement, which is to be extraordinary stewards, enhance communities, and enrich lives. And you paused over it, and I was wondering what you were thinking, and you looked up and you said, "That's a real good purpose statement."
It's a real good purpose statement.
And you challenged yourself. You said something about yours. I think ours could even be tweaked. So, it's and our company, since we did that, went through the process to come up with what our purpose was 8 or 10 years ago, it has really meant so much to be a company that's not just about making money or the real estate transaction,
Yeah.
but is about really impacting communities.
Right.
It changes the way people feel, and it changes their employee engagement.
And by the way, you make money.
Oh, that's absolutely.
So they go together. You're not taking away that in order to be able to do this. And I mean, our experience again is you do that and you do just fine.
Tell our stakeholders what would be an elevator pitch on what is conscious capitalism,
Yeah.
and why is it important? Why would it be important for them to consider getting involved, and why is Whole Foods involved?
So what it is and why it's important. What it is essentially is a business philosophy that puts the purpose of an organization at the very core of the proposition, why you exist. It surrounds it with the idea that organizations only grow through the consciousness of their leadership, and so you've got to be constantly working to evolve your leadership so that the organization can evolve. And recognizes the role of a conscious culture. Culture being that place where purpose and values live, and where the people are, and that is something that's a living thing that has to continue to be invested in by an organization as an organization grows. And finally, again, that this idea that business is served by a group of stakeholders, not just the shareholder. And different businesses have different stakeholders, but that you make decisions in growing a business by thinking about the legitimate interests of all the stakeholders and looking at ways to bring them together that are win-win so that all the stakeholders win. That's essentially the essence of conscious capitalism. It's an approach to business that celebrates business, but it suggests that business can continue to play an even bigger role in the world by adopting some of these sorts of ideas and practices. And why it matters is because I believe that businesses that do not move in this direction will be left behind. I think ultimately because the customer or the consumer is evolving so quickly in this more interdependent direction, that unless businesses move in lockstep to support that, they'll find themselves out of favor, not being supported, have their brand be at mismatch with where I think the customer is going to be. So you call it this. Bill Gates calls it creative capitalism. Richard Branson calls it enlightened capitalism. Different people have different names for it. Call it what you will. It's this sort of notion that you're going to realize the true potential of business and your business by thinking more broadly about your responsibility in the world and with your team members and in your communities.
And one thing that conscious capitalism, the organization, has done for me is help me understand that it's actually a business model. It's not just a way of thinking. It's a business model that's really, like you said, I think maybe the only successful business model going forward.
Yeah, well, I think, again, sometimes that's for others to say. We might say it to ourselves internally, but, I'm not one to go around.
Yeah, but how can y'all affect?
Well, look, I mean,
what's
the
happening in
fact
world?
is that if you look at it, that when I started out, we were fringier than fringe. We were way on the fringe, And the fact is now people, this sort of idea that fresh, healthy food, nutritious food is good for you and makes a difference is hitting a tipping point. Is hitting the mainstream. People are realizing that, and I think we've had a big part in helping that to happen and supporting that. Yes, there's been imbalances in science. There's been the media's gotten involved. There's many examples of where stuff has surfaced up like Alar, or antibiotics in meat that has made people realize, hey, don't just take this for granted. But I do think that the building out of our stores, there's really not a company exactly like Whole Foods, taking the food shop, making it fun, putting it in a supermarket environment as opposed to some sort of a hippie store. And I think taking very visible stands on issues like GMOs or GMO labeling or organics or sustainable seafood or animal welfare, by taking those very visible and public positions, I think we've continued to provide a leadership role in the marketplace around this stuff matters, right? And that ultimately, look, healthcare is 20% of our economy. 75% of that spend is preventable, chronic disease, totally by diet. This is an area for personal responsibility, and we're trying to provide the choices and the information to support people saying, yes, I want a healthier life, I want a vital life. And I think that we have helped to support that idea that is a very good thing to do. So I'm proud of that. I'm proud of what our company's accomplished.
Well, you should be, and just the fact, so you're educating folks, you're influencing policy in a big way worldwide. So that's great to hear. I knew that would be kind of a fun question. Good. Tell us about that strategy.
Sure. Well, I mean, look, in retail, you're constantly adjusting mix, product selection, pricing based on what's happening, and I think we've seen an evolution. We're very good at produce. I think we might have gotten a little bit sloppy against some of our competitors, and I think that your job is to keep truing up to the marketplace. And right now that shift has moved to the perishables, and we needed to the thing for us is we're about quality first. And there is a trade-off. All food is not created equal. There's reasons why some food's more expensive, and those are choices people have to make. So we always are striking that balance between quality and price, between values and value. We constantly walk what's the right combination? We're not going to do a race to the bottom and sell the cheapest food, because there's cost to that we've all talked about in terms of the healthcare system and the state of America's health and so forth. But on the other hand, we got to be relevant on price. And so where we are now is we've had a new crop of competitors show up that have gotten very aggressive in these areas, and we said, all right, we're going to get in there and work with it. So that's exactly what we're doing, and we're not being shy about it. We're being very bold, and we're doing a number of experiments and work around the country in this area. I think to reassert just basically that you can get good deals at Whole Foods, which you can, and you get the quality too, and you get the best of both in this. I think, again, with what I said before, I'm really excited about the number of new markets that we now think are possible to do at Whole Foods. Perhaps in the old days we would have done the coast in Texas, but now I think we can go to Lincoln, Nebraska, or Des Moines, Iowa, or places that Wichita, Kansas we just opened in. We just might not have ever thought we could. So I think that this demand for the sort of fresh, healthy food, whether it's from us or anybody else, is really very real, and it's opened up many new communities. That plus our new kind of thinking about community and how we go into a community and be a part of a community that we talked about earlier have made me very, very excited about I actually like going to Boise, Idaho, or Wichita, Kansas. There's great communities there, and there's great people there, and we have something of value to add, and those conversations are incredibly rich. And so it's been incredibly enlivening for our company to do that. And I think what you will see is figure out what's the right strategy for a market. Do we go in, I think we've been trying to do now, is this a 2-store market, a 3-store market, a single-store market? Make that decision up front, so we're thoughtful about that. And 2, build the right size store and put the right amount of capital so that we're being responsible to our shareholders, as we make those decisions. But that's, so I guess that's what I'm thinking is we're going to go for it. We're going to go for it. We're going to push the boundaries on which communities people thought we could serve and where we could go. We're going to do it with a sense of the experience that we gained from the downturn about making sure it's right size with the right amount of capital. But we're going to do it, and it's fun.
Well, one of the things that I've found in these smaller markets is that they have less distractions. They have less other opportunities. They don't always have football teams or baseball teams. They don't have pro sports. They don't all have college sports.
Yeah.
So you end up being a shopping center or a mixed-use place or a Whole Foods ends up being part of their leisure life.
Yeah.
It's an entertainment option. And I think that's where my guess is, a year or two when we talk about this, you go, God, we never thought we would under forecast our business in Boise or Wichita, wherever it might be, some smaller market, because to those folks, you are more than a great place to get fresh, healthy food. You are also part of their leisure life, and it becomes part of their entertainment spend as well.
If you have members of this community that are living in some of the mid-sized towns or the smaller towns, I can tell you a lot of times it's been the passion of the individual developer to come and see us and lay out a vision that has been, at least convinced us to come. And, when a community wants you or a community reaches out, that makes a huge difference. Let me tell you, anybody says it doesn't, it does. And I think about over Oklahoma City, we probably wouldn't have gone there, but Aubrey McClendon came and said, I want you guys to come. And then we picked out pretty much work with us on our site, and he had a different siting plan, and I said, no, we want the siting plan like this, and he did it, and we're there, and we're in Oklahoma City, we're doing gangbusters, So I think, every community is a special jewel, has a sparkle, has something there to recommend it, and oftentimes the developers who do a good job bringing that forward gets us excited about being part of something. That's something I would say from this end of it is something for all of you guys to remember. Well, I think it's the same thing where it has to continually evolve, right? So the built environment, the way people want to experience it now. First of all, it has that core quality if you do a good job.
Sure. Well, and conscious capitalism has been a a part of it, and just this sort of desire in me to do the most with my life, because God gave us one shot at it, and I just want to do the very best I can.
Sure, yeah.
And so the analogy we talked about, Walter, was that when I got out of graduate school, went to work for Lincoln Property Company, and then started my own firm, Trademark, 22 years ago. Business, it was transactional. Everybody, all the brokers and the leasing agents kept track of how many deals did we do this year. Everybody was judged by how many deals did you do this year. There was there really wasn't a scorecard of how did you impact the community, or how many relationships that are going to impact our business in the future did you start this year. And so as it evolved, I noticed that, I said, I want to do something different. So in the mid-'90s, we developed a shopping center. We spent a few $100,000 on public art and a fountain and public seating, put Starbucks there and a marble slab there, and we watched the community enjoy it so much, and it felt good to me. And maybe we could have made more money by not making those investments. I don't really believe that, but maybe we could have. But it didn't matter because it just felt like it was the right thing to do. And then so we started investing in what I'd say in sort of community amenities. And then as time went on, I started seeing what are great companies doing. We're at good to great, but then firms of endearment. The firms that actually beat the great companies and get to great. And those companies have some mojo that is different. They actually care about stakeholders winning, and they know that if their stakeholders win, including the environment, including the globe, that they're actually going to win, and their investors are going to win too. And so we've adopted that model, and so we now believe, I believe now our business is it went from commerce to commerce and community to commerce, community, and meaning, and now it's even more exciting to go to work. Because I used to focus on quality of the environment. If I built a nice building, it would be there in the future, and people would like it, and I would have left something. But now it's more about how am I going to inspire, amuse, how am I going to raise awareness, how am I going to give these folks an opportunity to connect and to give them a voice and educate. And that's a much higher. That's a higher challenge. It's a higher cause. It's a higher purpose, and it certainly makes my job more fun every day going to work.
So, what would be your one challenge, or just from out of your own experience, what would be your? This is your community, the development community. What would you be sharing your message to them? What challenge would you issue to the community?
Yeah, is to take the risk and know that at the end of it, my experience has been if you take the risk to spend more time listening, asking the community. And if you take the risk to invest in potentially amenities or things that you wouldn't normally associate as investments with any return on them, know that communities, we did a mall in Corpus Christi, Walter, we did a major renovation of our mall in Corpus Christi, spent $50 million renovating it. Sales went from $420 a foot to $650 a foot. Nobody thought that Corpus Christi could have a mall that could do $650 a foot. And so what we see is that if you raise the community's expectations, you give them more than they expected, that they will literally love you for it.
Right.
They will thank you by leaving every dollar they can with you in Corpus Christi before they drive to San Antonio, whereas that's what they used to do with that $200+ a foot. So that would be it, is take some risk, invest in the community, do it with a purpose. That Trademark has really become a relevant industry leader in innovation and in, like you mentioned, in pushing the envelope now to help communities expect more.